apparently U.S. Congress wants the FTC to review EA's sale to Saudi Arabia. For those of you that are out of the loop, apparently EA has been approached to be purchased by not just Saudi Arabia, but it's like this investment fund, and Saudi Arabia owns a big portion of that investment fund. And, Congress is basically saying, you know what? We just saw what Microsoft did when they bought Activision Blizzard. We didn't like that because Microsoft said, hey, we're not going to raise prices. And then they raised prices. And then EA, which has been having all kinds of problems, is getting purchased by this investment group. It just seems like the gaming industry. Full transparency. When Microsoft was trying to buy ABK, I was okay with it. And the reason I was okay with it was because the leadership at ABK was terrible. And I thought maybe we can get rid of them and then it'd be better. Turned out I was wrong. It's not really that great. So I was wrong on that. So now I'm very wary about these big companies coming in and buying up all of this IP, because then they control it and then we can't get we don't get to see any more stuff from this. So I like that members of Congress are saying, hey, maybe the FTC should look into this and make sure that it's on the up and up and it's something that's actually good for the industry, because I doubt that it is, even though, EA gets a lot of shit, but they've made some pretty good games in recent years. I mean, yeah, there was that time where they wanted to charge us to reload our guns, but that was a long time ago. And we got really good games like the Star Wars
Battlefield.
Well, I mean, people didn't like the Battlefield one, even though I thought it was great.
Jedi Fallen Order ones.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order. Those are the ones that I was thinking of. Although Battlefront is really good.
Yeah,
it really is.
A lot of people.
EA tried to do some nefarious things, but they ended up stepping back after they got that backlash and the most downvoted comment on Reddit ever or whatever it was. But the EA Jedi Fallen Order games, those are really well received.
Yeah. Also, they're the publisher for It Takes Two and
right.
Split Fiction. Yeah. So their wheelhouse of stuff that they have is great. Especially the latest Battlefield that came out. A lot of people love that. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think that I don't know what to make of it. I know that sometimes it's kind of crazy, but when you take a look at even Ubisoft is in this weird position of it's genuinely a ginormous company. They have 16,000 employees, and they're not doing so hot.
No.
So it's you're I was always maybe someone's going to acquire Ubisoft, because you take a look at the stock price of Ubisoft, and it's I don't know, we could probably buy them if we wanted to. It's just we couldn't afford. It's hey guys, we're the CEOs now. We need to fire everybody because we can't afford the payroll.
So par for the course. So it'd be exactly like anybody else buying them.
Yeah, it's that's what would happen, and it's I don't want to see that happen, but at the same time, Ubisoft is kind of in that. I feel bad because Ubisoft, there are the technical prowess from Ubisoft, and especially there's a lot of people that I know that probably grew up in the 80s and 90s that were flexing Amigas and early hardware and have that in them to take it to the next level. And you can see that in Rayman, their 2D framework. Assassin's Creed started off as just a tech demo of how a character can gracefully move through a bunch of a crowded environment. There's lots of stuff that Ubisoft does that is just really cool, almost like middleware tech that they just make games out of, and then they're very formulaic and they just kind of crunch them out. And I feel it's unfortunate that everyone's kind of tired of that, right? They're not doing so well, and I don't know what's going to happen. But you see, there's Tencent might buy Ubisoft, and it's I don't really want that,
right?
And you don't want Microsoft to buy them,
no.
And Sony's not going to buy them, so it's what happens to this? Does this just evaporate and it becomes a THQ type of thing where all of the IP just kind of gets splintered and sold off to all these different places? And is that the better thing? I don't know.
When you talk about Ubisoft, I think the one thing that I think of is they just The problem with Ubisoft is not that they make bad games, it's that they keep making the same game over and over and over, and people just got bored. That's why they're not doing well.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's just that I don't think that EA is a problem, but EA did a lot of the very transparent, we want your money type of thing. Like, just like, wallet, please. Like, empty your wallet, please. And it's like, can you just, like, I don't know, lower the lights or something? Like, just, like, wine and dine me first before we just do this.
Put on some Marvin Gaye and Chardonnay.
Yeah. Like, goodness gracious. Like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it may not have been fair for everyone to have voted EA to be the worst company of all time, but it still wasn't like they weren't in the top rankings, even though that they've produced really good stuff. The palpable stuff of like what they were doing was not popular. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I have any answer.
I think some of that reputation has eroded. Probably not enough, but I do think, like you said, there's It Takes Two, Battlefield, Star Wars, lots of interesting stuff that EA has made, and then I think that goes back to like your criticism of Ubisoft. I do think that they haven't tried anything interesting, right? Last week we were talking about them not holding on to the developers that went on to make Clair Obscur, right? That's a game that could have come out under the Ubisoft umbrella, and those developers were like, no, we clearly can't make that game here, so we're going to go make that game ourselves. And so Ubisoft seems to right now have no interest, or at least prior to last week, have no interest in making games like that or making interesting smaller bets, right? And EA has been, to their credit, taking those smaller bets, specifically with Hazelight Studios. So that has been really fun to see. I think the deal, what Congress is asking is interesting on two fronts. First of all, the way that they're asking it, they're centering this around like labor market, right? And we had another story that we won't get to here about how like the U.S. video game industry has basically lost a third of its workforce in the last 2 years. And so the Congress letter here says we are committed to preserving fair, competitive labor markets and safeguarding American jobs. And given the impact of this acquisition on workers, labor market concentration, and the long-term competitiveness of U.S. video game industry, we urge you to thoroughly review this transaction. So I think it's cool that they're thinking about that. I did not expect to see this from Congress. Either. So, yeah, at all, right? So I'm optimistic about that. The thing that I am just confused on is that FTC did investigate the Microsoft Activision acquisition and a lot and recommended against it, and Microsoft just did it anyway and faced no repercussions. So, like, what would you expect to happen here, even if FTC does investigate and say, no, we don't think this is going to be fair to the American people? EA maybe the angle, as you had brought it up, was the workforce angle, because the FTC angle for the Microsoft ABK way was the consumer angle is like they're going to make sure that anyone that's on PlayStation isn't going to be able to get Call of Duty anymore and all this. And it was like, no, we're going to bring it to Call of Duty, and that did turn out to be correct. Is true. So all of the things that the FTC was fighting against never really materialized to be a problem to begin with,
other than price increases.
Right, for Game Pass.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Right. But I don't know that. Was it the game prices that were going to go up, or Game Pass prices?
My recollection, and this is just from memory, so I could be wrong, but my recollection is that Microsoft was asked specifically, or somebody said they're going to raise prices after they close this on Game Pass, and Microsoft said, we are not going to raise prices on Game Pass after this deal closes. And then the deal closed, and 6 months later, boom, $30 a month for Game Pass.
I think the weasel words that they used were, we are not going to raise prices based on this deal.
Right. And, so they can just say, well, we were going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Sure. But I mean, from the angle of everyone, like, oh goodness, they're actually gonna be like, Activision are going to be exclusive to Xbox would be like awful for people that
Right.
everyone bought PlayStations, and that never materialized. But I think the angle, if what you're saying is true, if they're worried about the workforce, then they're going to have to, I guess,
That's a great point.
argue that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think they'll have a lot more ammunition if they argue that for sure.
Yeah, I
How
think
many-
that, you know,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a $55 billion buyout is what they're estimating it to be. So it's like one of the largest corporate takeovers in history. So I am glad that Congress is at least getting involved with that. I mean, how many Americans are going to be affected by that? I think it's a big deal, regardless of industry. And so I do appreciate that they're doing that. And so, yeah.
Well, and you think of, you talk about labor or whatever. EA's had quite a few layoffs since the pandemic. The pandemic. Although you brought up that thing, Rich, where the other story where it was 33%,
Yeah, 33%.
like a third. Yeah, so like a third of the workforce is gone. And I hate defending layoffs because it's like I hate that it happens. But what a lot of people tend to forget is during the pandemic, these video game companies were making so much money that they were like, let's just hire everybody. And that was irresponsible of them. They hired more people than they should have. And then they had to fire all of those people because they hired way too many.
There was a relevant blog post that was posted recently, so I'm going to plug it because I love this developer. His name is Tom Francis, the developer of Gunpoint, Heat Signature, and Tactical Breach Wizards. He posted.
I played that one.
Yeah, he posted a blog post called 15 Years of Indie Dev and 4 Bits of Advice. And if you do, we're obviously talking about this now, but if you look at that article where it says a third of the U.S. game industry was laid off in the last 2 years, a third of AAA studios, no, excuse me, 2/3 experience layoffs at AAA studios. Only 1/3 compared to AAA for indies. So, like, what's the difference between indies and AAA studios? And I think it's exactly what you said, Bill. They have to grow smaller. So, like, he gave 5 guidelines, and one of those guidelines was stay as small as you can. He says, I hate to say this at a time when it would be nice that there were more jobs, but I want to encourage more stable jobs. Staffing up doesn't really create jobs if it leads to layoffs or closure, and it fucks with a lot of lives along the way. End quote.